and Uncle Abe, whom I don't think you knew, and Aunt Mary and Uncle Sam, who was Florence's father,
Right.
were born in Europe.
Right.
And
Do you know where they were born?
in Russia someplace. And now the only city I know there is Krakow, but they weren't there. They lived in some small town. Well, all I know is Lomza Gubernia, but that I think Gubernia is as a state, like.
Now, is this town that Aunt Mary came from the same town that Isaac and Rebecca Sarna came from? They all came from this same town in Russia?
Yes. Oh, yes. They were little children.
Right.
Aunt Mary and your father and Uncle Abe. But, well, it was someplace near Krakow, but it had one of those little Russian names.
Interesting.
And,
But your parents had already been married in this town when they came to America.
Oh, yes. Yes, they had 3 children. Your father was your grandfather. Wait a minute.
No.
No, your father is A.L. He's in Israel.
No, I'm A.L.
But your grandfather, my father,
Your father.
was born in Russia.
Right, and was married in Russia.
Yes, they were married.
Right, and came to America together.
Yes,
In
but
what
let
year?
me tell you.
Oh, go ahead.
You see, in Russia, they were very bad to the Jews.
Right.
And they were... Would you close that? Yeah, thanks. So that they couldn't get visas in Russia to come to the United States.
Right.
Their business was a mill.
Uh-huh.
You see, and my father told me, and he never learned to speak English. He only spoke Yiddish and some Russian, I guess. And they had to go to Poland. They were, they were being executed in Russia.
Right.
And so they went to Poland, and there they were able to get visas.
Right.
Now, the way they got the visas, and this is the strange thing, was that Lou's real mother, whom I never met, she was long dead then, she was a Jamalowski.
Right.
And in, where in Germany?
Hamburg.
In Hamburg, Germany, yes, was the Jamalowski Bank.
Right.
And through the Jamalowski Bank, I've told you this, haven't I? They got their visas.
Right.
And that's how they got to America.
What year did they come to America, Isaac and Rebecca? Do you have any idea about?
That I can't tell exactly. Well, it was before when was the First World War?
1914.
Oh, yeah. Well, they came at the turn of the century. 1901 or 2, something like that.
And what year were you? You were born in 1906?
No, wait a minute. Let me see. I'm 99. I'm
You're
90.
80,
Yes,
you're 89.
I'm 99. So figure it.
You were born in 1910, then.
Yeah, that's right. That's in 1910, May 15th, 1910.
Long time ago. Believe that?
Yes, it sure is.
They hardly even had cars then. You think about what you've seen, Graham. One World War, another World War.
Yeah, that's right.
Computers.
That's right.
When you were born, they hardly had radio. I mean, they
I
had
don't think they had them. We didn't have any. I mean,
crazy transition.
Ordinary people. I mean, we never were hungry or anything like that. And my father and his brother, what was Uncle somebody's name? Abram. Abram, I don't know, something like that. They had a little factory, and when big dress companies had a lot of dresses to make of one style, they give them to this smaller manufacturer, and that's what my father and his brother run that factory.
This was in Brooklyn.
Or New York.
Or what?
I don't know. Yes. They do dresses in quantity. If they had something especially nice, they'd bring me one or something.
Do you remember what that was called?
Oh, God, no.
And then your mother at the time didn't work when you were growing up?
Oh, no. She never worked that I knew of. She had lots of, she had 5 children. And she was a little thing. God, when I think how much work she did. She scrubbed floors and she cooked big dinners every night. And
so you had
all the holidays, and they had no maids or anything.
This is when you were born to Isaac and Rebecca. You were living in Brooklyn at the time, right?
Yes,
correct?
I was born in Brooklyn. Oh, I lived there till I was almost 20.
And then what?
I was married there.
All right, now give me the names of all your siblings.
Of my brothers and sisters.
Uh-huh.
Well, there's Aunt Lee. There's Lee. Well, she never married. She
Right.
was
Yeah, I know.
Donna.
I remember Aunt Lee.
Yeah. And Aunt Mary was married once in California,
Right.
but she got
But
divorced.
she wasn't your sister. Aunt Lee was your sister.
Yes, so was Aunt Mary.
Oh, Aunt Mary was your sister?
Yes, she was. See, I was the youngest of 5.
Oh, okay.
And who is your grandfather, Uncle Sam? No, that was.
It gets confused. My grandpa is your husband, Grandpa Lou.
Oh, Lou. Yeah,
Right.
I'm getting a little mixed
It's
up.
understood. We're throwing out all the
that's
names.
right.
All right. So your sister was Lee. Then you had another sister, Mary. Right. And then you had a brother.
Brother, Uncle Abraham, and Sam.
Is Abraham the same thing as Uncle Albert, Saul's father, or is that a different?
Albert.
He
Who's
died.
Albert?
Uncle Albert, beautiful old man, really nice. Albert Abe, is that the same person?
No.
You know cousin Saul, Midge's cousin?
Midge's cousin.
Cousin Saul. He lives in Denver.
I don't know him.
Well, he's Uncle Albert's son. Albert is your brother. That's Abe. I think it's got to be the same person.
I suppose. I'm a little mixed up
that's all
about
right.
that.
So there was Abe, Sam, Mary, Lee, and Paula. Those were the 5 kids.
Yes, 5 children.
And you were the youngest.
Yes.
Well, so they had a lot of kids.
Yes.
What do you remember from growing up in that household? Was it a warm household?
Well, of course, I was the youngest, so I was petted a good deal. And my father, who was a quiet, kind of introspective person, he never learned to speak English, and
how did you communicate with him?
The what?
How did you communicate with him? Did you speak Yiddish at the time?
I suppose I did.
Interesting.
I suppose I did, yes. I know some Yiddish. I can't think of them offhand. Bosses, dose, or something. It's so long ago.
But your mother spoke English.
Yes, broken, but,
right.
I mean, she was grown and married when she came here, and, with 3 children. Well, they were young, but...
So when he was running his little clothing factory with his brother, they were dealing with other people who spoke Yiddish. It was that kind of community.
I suppose, yes. A lot of the people that came over, and a lot of them were in the dress business somehow.
Yeah.
But they all came from... You see, well, as I told you, they were so bad to the Jews in Russia. They murdered a lot of them, but the ones that got out, as I told you, went to Poland, and from there they were able to get a visa, which I told you when Grandpa and I signed our marriage thing, the applications, I found the name, what was it?
Jarmilowski.
I said, I've heard that name, because I heard them talk at home.
That's a weird coincidence.
And the Jarmilowski Bank was downtown.
I've gone to see it.
And a grandson ran away with the bank's funds.
Yeah, which they told
well, I
on the
didn't know
tour
who he
now.
was, but see, all the Jews that came over, they got their visas through that Jarmilowski. I didn't know it till Lou filled out our marriage application.
Wow.
Because the name Jarmilowski is not common, they ask for your mother's maiden name on that. Well, you've never been married, have you?
No, I've never been married. Thank God.
But because the girl said, how do you spell that, Jarmilowski, And I said, I've heard that name as a child, because all the ones that came over through them invested in that bank in lower New York someplace.
Right.
The east side or something. And, I mean, most of the Jews lived there. You know, it was a really Jewish community, and they knew each other. And I said, I've heard that name.
All right, so they came over here, they got these visas, and they owned the little tailor factory, right?
Yeah.
Now, you said you were growing up and you were kind of spoiled a little bit because you were the youngest and you were the daughter.
Of the five, yes.
What about in a fiscal sense, in a financial sense? Were you guys? I mean, you obviously weren't wealthy,
we were never
but were you
hungry or anything like that.
Right.
And I had whatever I needed. I mean,
you would say you were like working class. I mean, this wasn't a rich family. You guys weren't.
Oh no, we didn't have a country home or anything like that. We had an apartment.
Right.
Yeah. I think first we were on the Lower East Side in New York, and then moved to Brooklyn, which was kind of about the trail that most of the immigrants
and then you move out to Nassau County. That's like the.
Oh well, that's after I was.
Well, we'll get to that. Now, your mother, Rebecca Sarna, what kind of woman was she?
Well, she was little, and she did so much work. When I think of it, it kind of breaks my heart.
Really?
I see her, and they scrub. You know, whatever they say about them, the Jews are the cleanest. You know, and my mother was little, and she scrubbed those floors, and then she cooked dinner. And my brothers were big boys, and she'd cook dinner for 7 people every night. There was no such thing as going to restaurants or anything.
And what about her personality? Was she a warm person? Or
yes. Well, to me, I was the youngest, you know, and I went all over with her, and I remember getting on a streetcar. I think at that time, what are you picking on?
I'm just playing with my face. I'm not picking anything.
We got on the trolley car to go someplace, you know, and I don't think they even had, I don't know, maybe they had subways, but I wasn't there. And my mother was little, and, well, you know, I'm not terribly tall, but I was a little taller. And on the streetcar, she wanted me to have the low price or something. And the conductor, I remember this saying, well, how could she have such, you know, maybe it was 10 cents and I was 5 cents. The conductor said, she's taller than you are to my mother. I remember that. So she was little. And cooked and scrubbed and did everything for many years.
Was she the kind of person that, let's say you had a crush on some boy, would you tell your mother about it, or not really that kind of relationship?
I don't remember. I don't think it was that kind of relationship.
And what about, I know this is a little bit personal, but would you say they had a good marriage, like a marriage of love? Were they
well, I suppose it was love, but there was never much
marriage was different in those days.
Yes. No, you know, hugging or hand-holding.
You know, kind of like your first marriage was kind of, you just did it because that was the thing to do back then.
Who, me?
Your first marriage,
yes.
wasn't
yeah,
really.
Because, I knew him for several years. He lived 1, 2, 3 from me.
Right.
And he was tall, and in fact, it turned out that he worked in the same building that Lou did. Yeah, 74 Trinity Place. You know, with I forget what he did.
So your parents, I mean, they got along, but they weren't incredibly affectionate, is what you're saying?
No, not openly, you know. No. That's only in storybooks.
Well, some people I know have parents that are always kissing each other. And,
really?
Oh, yeah, 50 years later. It blows my mind.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how.
No, I'm afraid they weren't demonstrative that way. No, I never saw it.
And and then moving on a little bit, your father, did he retire then at some point? Or did he actually die while he was working?
Well, eventually, yes, he did retire.
I
can hardly remember it.
How old? Do you remember when he died, your father? How old you were about?
I can't really. I was fairly young.
Like you're a teenager?
Say 15, I'll say. I don't think I was that old, but my mind is not.
Would you say that he died young for his age, or
I
he was
think
about
he
average?
lived a full life.
So they were quite a bit older than you then.
Oh yes. Well, see, there were 4 older than me.
Right.
I was the youngest.
If you think about it, to have your father pass away when you're 15, it's pretty young.
Maybe I was, darling, it's hard for me to remember. I don't know the dates that they died or anything.
But your mother lived quite a few years after that?
Yes. I think he died first. It's so hard. I'm approaching,
Yeah, well, that's why I'm trying to get it now before, it gets lost in the haze. Did your mother attend your wedding, your first wedding?
Oh, yes. I was married first to Ted Theodore. I still have his name, and I can't remember it. Teddy,
That's not really that important.
but it's still in part of my name. You're supposed to have someplace to get it wiped out or something, but I came across something just recently, I don't know where, that gave my first married name Friedland. But my name is really Paula Friedland Singer, because I didn't know where you went to have your name rubbed out.
Do you remember
never did.
Do you remember how old you were when you married him?
19 or 20. Yes, I'd known him for 2 or 3 years before. See, we lived like almost around the corner from me. He was tall and very good looking, and he was a basketball. He worked he worked at 74 Trinity Place,
really?
The same place that I didn't know Grandpa then.
Right.
I didn't know him, but later it turned out that they were in the same building.
So, you married him in 1930, is what it comes down to.
I guess so.
And then you met Grandpa at this retreat.
I was engaged to Teddy.
Oh, right. Okay, you hadn't married him.
Well, I worked at Macy's, and we got a vacation, and I went with one of the girls from Macy's, a friend of mine, and I don't know if she's Macy's, some girlfriend, up to a resort in the Catskills someplace. I think it was in the Catskills, but there were certain places where young people went, and that's where I met Grandpa, Lou. But I was already engaged, but...
and this was when Grandpa had already come back from Stanford.
Oh, yes. He was out of Stanford but wait a minute, he worked in Wall Street in 20... He got out, I think, the end of 28 of Stanford, and he got a job in Wall Street. And then, I tell you that his father finally broke down. His father was a real tough old cookie.
Yeah.
He came up from nothing. And,
yeah, well, we're getting to that
Oh,
side.
yeah, did the first automobile show in New York. And that was really, he was a tough old cookie, tall. And of course, he liked me because I had a job. And
right.
I worked at Macy's.
Now, was up at this resort in the Catskills where that famous corn whiskey incident happened? When Grandpa gave you that
the
food?
drink, yeah, and I didn't wake up for 2 days or something. Yes.
So he must have
He
really...
said, but I like to go for a ride. He was a tennis player. He
right.
played tennis every day. But this was kind of a drizzly day. And he had a car. He and a friend, or I don't know if it was his or the friends or his brothers or something. He said, would I like to go for a ride? He wanted to pick something up. And I said, I'd go. I didn't have anything to do. And that's when he picked up from this farm. This is during Prohibition,
right. Yeah.
So he said he'll just be a minute, and he came out with a bottle in a brown paper bag.
Wow.
But then he transferred it into his flask. He had a beautiful flask.
That's a classy thing back then.
Yes, he was. And then he said, the flask had a little cover on it, so he filled that and drank it. And, well, you know this story.
Well,
he said, but I like to try it, and then I didn't wake up for a day and a half or something.
So then, after this meeting, you and Grandpa kind of started, you know...
Well, I got married.
Right.
Yes. I knew him, of course, but I was already engaged,
right.
so I had some little diamond ring, and no, because I'd known Teddy for a couple of years. You know, that was the trouble. He was a perfectly nice man. He was tall, slim, and they played basketball for fun, not I forget what he did, but he was in that building in 74 Trinity Place.
So how many years after you married him did you marry Grandpa? Do you remember about?
Well, it took 3 years to get a divorce, so it was.
Do you remember what year you married Grandpa in?
No, I don't.
Was it like 1934 or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It must be because
I don't remember the year that I married my first husband.
Do you remember how old you were when you married Grandpa?
Well, I was about 20 when I married Teddy.
Right.
And say I married Grandpa 3 years later.
So about age 23 or 24.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you had Alice within 2 or 3 years of that.
Oh, no. It was at least 5 years.
Oh, it was at least 5 years?
Yeah.
When you had Alice, where were you living? Do you remember? Were you already on Stevenson Road?
Oh, yes. We lived in the city for 3 years. We had one apartment, I told you, 26 East 10th Street, with the traffic light going on at night that kept me up all year. And the following year, we moved to 9th Street in the same big, beautiful building. And
the 10th and University, right?
Huh?
10th and University.
Yes. University and 10th. And I think the same building ran around to 9th Street on University Place for shop. It was a very nice neighborhood, except I told you the traffic light kept me up all night. And
at that point, was Grandpa already making a good amount of money where you guys were? Oh, not really?
But things are much cheaper then.
Right.
And, you know, his father gave him $1,000 to invest because he got a job, you know, at $12 a week as a runner.
Right.
And that's what the runners got. See, they never mailed stock.
Right.
So they would deliver it by hand. And shortly after he got the job, I've told you this, and all the boys stopped in. There was an automat.
Right, yeah, the automat's classic New York.
And then they'd stop in to have a little snack or something, and he left the stock. He forgot the package.
Man, at the automat.
And that was, but someone returned it to them.
Really?
Yes. See, all the stocks were delivered by hand. You didn't mail stock because the price could have changed
by the time it
in the day or two that it took. Yes.
It's amazing that with a Stanford degree, that's still where he had to start.
No, it didn't qualify him for. He didn't, study anything. I think he majored in Spanish or something.
No, still, Stanford's a pretty fancy school.
Yes, but most of the places, people in the East never heard of it except Lou's father did. He had been, he started with nothing, and he did the first automobile show in New York.
All right, so let's do that. Let's move on to Grandpa.
Yes.
Now, Grandpa, let's start. He had a first mother who died very early in his life.
Yes, when he was.
And that was the Jarmolowski lady. That was the Jarmolowski.
Yes.
Do you know what her first name was?
No, I don't remember. No, well, they mentioned it. I never knew her, of course.
And we don't know where she was from.
Well, she, I presume, was from, what's that place in Germany?
Hamburg.
From Hamburg, because that's where the Jarmolowski Bank was.
Now,
and his mother was a Jarmolowski.
Did M.A. marry her once he was already in America then? Yes.
I think so. Yes. I'm quite sure. See, my parents were already married when they came to this country, but M.A., I don't think.
And then what was, okay, so M.A. came to America from Russia with these papers that he got.
Yeah.
Or no, that's your family. We're getting confused here.
Yeah.
M.A. came over from Russia with not a nickel for a beer and a newspaper in his shoes.
Yes, that's right. He went, tell about that. He went into a, well, they didn't call them diners then. I guess a saloon or something. And but he didn't have a nickel for a beer or anything. With a beer, you got lunch or something like that.
Jesus.
But he asked the bartender for his scissors, and he cut out designs out of newspaper just for something. It was so cold. Syracuse, you know, that's a very cold part of New York.
Yeah.
It's west.
Yeah.
And because we have relatives there, see, Grandpa and I, someplace way back, there was some relationship, maybe out of Russia, because we had relatives in Syracuse, and he did.
Wow.
Because that's where Grandpa went. You know, they would go to people that they knew, and they would always have what they called a launch or something,
right,
like a chaiselong.
Right.
And there'd always be somebody sleeping on it for a day or two. You know, when they'd come over from Europe, yes.
Right.
But they would be from the same town, you know.
Right, well, that's how it worked back then. You came and stayed with your relatives who were already established.
Yes, that's right.
Do you know what year he came?
Occasionally have somebody strange sleep over.
So do you know what year M.A. came over to America? Any idea, around the turn of the century?
Well, I can't tell you what year, but I'd say it was around the turn of the century. See, but he was younger than he wasn't married, I don't think. Yeah. See, he met Lou's mother here, I think. Yes. But see, that was a well-known family, and they had the bank, which they got their visas through them, you know.
Do you know what year Grandpa was born in?
Hamburg, Germany.
You know what year Grandpa was born in?
Who's mine?
Yeah, your husband.
My husband's father.
No, what year Grandpa Lou was born in?
Oh, well, he was born here. When was his birthday? Well, he's dead almost 10 years, and I can't tell you.
He died in the summer of 1991.
Yes, that's about it.
And how old was he when he died? Do you know?
I think he was just turned 86.
Okay, so let's do a little math here. So he was born around 1905.
Or early 80s or something.
So he was like 6 years older than you.
Yes, about 5 years, yeah. Well, 5 years. 5 and something, 5 and a half.
All right.